Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this Thursday, June 28th meeting of the Blackstone-Millville Regional School District to order. Could you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have an introduction of our members here present today.
Bethany Dunton, Blackstone Rock.
Tammy Lemieux, Blackstone.
Sarah Larkin, Millville.
Erin Bonaco, Millville.
Jane Reggio, Millville.
Jack Heath, Blackstone.
Karen Vernon, Millville.
Sarah Williams, Blackstone.
One Cobb, Business Manager.
Alan Himmelberger, Superintendent.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go a little bit out of the order of our agenda tonight. And we will have two public forums. The first opportunity for a public forum will be for anyone who would like to bring something to the school committee's attention that does not pertain to the budget or budget issues. Then during our budget discussion, we'll have another public forum. But first, I would like to start with Ms. Beth Gaylor from the YMCA Family Partnership.
I'll start on it.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good evening. This is Beth Gaylor. She works for the YMCA of, actually, where is you're located?
We're connected to the YMCA in Westboro, Mass.
Okay,
And
sorry.
the Westboro location is also connected to the Worcester YMCAs.
Okay, I didn't really know that, sorry. But we're here tonight to talk about a program we're trying to put together for 3-, 4-, and 5-year-old students. They'll be housed at JFK, potentially in the fall. And basically what it is, it's a program run by a lot of the YMCAs in this area. Actually, why don't I say that?
Sure.
To them. And what it is, it's a series of programs where the children will be coming to our school for 60 to 90 minutes, 1 day per week. And they will be basically serviced, and the programs will be run by the YMCA staff.
Thank you.
Essentially what they're looking for is a place to house it, a place to run it. This program currently runs at a lot of the various towns in our area, but right now we don't offer this in Blackstone or Millville. So this will be open to anyone, either Blackstone or Millville or the surrounding towns, and it is free of charge for the people that attend. They run similar programs right now at the Blackstone Library, and what they consist of are a lot of things like STEM programs. For example, that 3- and 4-year-old children will be coming with their parents, and they will be participating in STEM-based activities, obviously targeted at 3- and 4-year-olds. But the parents would be attending with their children and be led by YMCA leaders. If you look on the inside, there's various other programs that they have. They have play and learn groups. They have various enrichment groups. They have lots of things like that. But again, what we're looking for is your blessing, your permission to bring the program into John F. Kennedy Elementary School in the fall. And we would advertise it again to the local communities, and anyone that would like to attend can come. But they would be coming to our school for about 60 to 90 minutes, 1 day per week. And we do have some vacant classrooms that we can use to house this program in. But again, there would be no cost to the attendees, and actually we would not be paying rent either. So we're really just looking for a place to hold it. They currently have this program occasionally at the Blackstone Library, but the Blackstone Library, the hours are somewhat inconsistent, so it's hard to sort of build a consistent program. So we're looking for more of a consistent tenant, if you want to say, to run the programs. Is there anything you'd like to add?
One of the things, it's a little confusing seeing the YMCA in the title of this program. We are a grant funded by the Department of Early Education and Care, and the YMCA holds the grant. They are fiscally responsible for it, and because we are one of the largest programs in Massachusetts serving 15 towns, that it had to be a community organization to be responsible for the grant. We've been in the community since 2000, and I have worked with this program for that length of time. And we've struggled with Blackstone Millville, as Steve has mentioned, because the library can give us free space. A requirement of the grant is to hold a program in each of the communities, but at the library, they can give us afternoon times, and for this age group, which is actually infant up through school age, they want morning programs. Our programs always fill in the afternoons at the Blackstone Library, but we would like to accommodate more of the younger children also. And so I want to thank Steve for inviting me here, and also for the time here in meeting all of you. We hope to, as Steve mentioned, we hope to establish a play and learn group at JFK School. And we're really targeting families with children who perhaps, it is open to all families, but we're targeting families who have no early childhood experience in reaching the children who come to school with no early childhood experience. And we feel that the school will be a safe place that perhaps parents will attend with their children. And so we look forward to this opportunity with your blessing.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Time frame that you're looking for in terms of how will it impact with the start of the school day? Will it start after the school day? Time frame, and then is there a minimum number of students you would need to have to run the program, and is there a maximum number that you would take?
The time frame is, we find that usually around either a 9:30 or 10 o'clock start time, and then it would go 9:30 to 11, 10 to 11:30, and that is all flexible depending on buses and to answer your other question is usually we, in our Sutton location, which is our big location, we can accommodate up to 20 children with their parents. But the space that we looked at, it seems like probably around 12 children we can accommodate, because every child needs to come with a caregiver. It can be parent, nanny, grandparent. We see a lot of grandparents in our program.
And the space I have in mind is, if you know JFK at all, the B wing, which is the wing that goes out towards Mendon Street in the back. There's a vacant classroom at the end, and the parent drop-off is off to that side of the school, but that's over by about 5 of 9. So that's also the entrance that I had in mind for the parents to come in. So they would come in, so the back entrance, they would come in, minimal sort of impact on the rest of the building. They would kind of come in, essentially, the back entrance, they would go, it's pretty much the first or second classroom in the door, and then they would also leave that. So they'd be gone by 10:30, 11, 11:30. So it wouldn't impact either drop-off in the morning or pick-up in the afternoon.
And we would take care of all the expense of materials and even tables and chairs and even all the cleaning we would take care of.
I have a question. So is it first come, first served basis? Like the first 12 children who sign up, would you offer a class a day if you had more than 12 children? So we could do a full week, but it would be 12
Different.
children on Mondays, and then Tuesdays it would be another 12 children different.
Absolutely. We would, how we have started in other communities is we start with one program and we see if there is a waiting list. For example, we have done this in Marlborough. And so then we added a second group. And we're up to 5 groups a week in Marlborough now because of that. So when we have a waiting list and we do our registration, by lottery, and we are able to communicate with families through email, but we do have access to paper copies of everything if a family does not have access to email. But yes, to answer your question, we accommodate wait lists. We do offer one program per week per family, to be fair to all families. Yes.
Thank
Aaron?
you.
So families being just from Blackstone, and how do you verify their residential status? Or is it open to any of these communities in our building?
We would hope we would reach families from Blackstone and Millville. If a family came from another town, in every town in Massachusetts, a program like this covers every town in Massachusetts. And so we refer families that are not from our service area to their particular program.
So we are right on the border of Rhode Island, and we do see, interstate issues. So how would you deal with that?
We would not be able to serve families from Rhode Island because this is a state grant, although in saying that, in the libraries, we do.
So how do you, in the Blackstone Library, when you were holding these, there were children from Rhode Island?
From Rhode Island.
So how do you, what is your procedure on signing kids up?
We have an online registration policy. We actually register by lottery, and so we are able to register so many families per group, and we are able to see their addresses. To answer your question of how do we verify addresses, we trust they're giving us their correct address.
And then, I guess my next question, so you said this would be Millville and Blackstone, so you don't currently have a space in Millville?
We have offered programs at the library, but we have struggled again with the time that the Millville Library is available, and in some of the classes have not filled. We need a minimum of 5 children in order to hold a group, and in a couple of the programs in Millville, we have not had that registration.
And I guess my last question would be, is there any concern on having the adults in the building that we don't have Corey's on, or
my question.
how would that
Was the
be
Corey'd
handled
adults?
in your eyes, Steve?
And coming in a back door that's going to be
Yeah.
open for them to come in?
Yeah, we would have someone at the door. We're not going to leave the door wide open,
No,
of
I know
course,
that, but I mean,
Yeah.
we've had to turn volunteers away at MES who haven't been able to come in
Yeah.
because they're not quarried.
But how are you going to?
Yeah. I suppose we'd probably have to get a list of who's going to be attending. We'd run a Corey check on them and all that. But they would be spending the time in the class with their child. It's not a drop and leave program.
Right, which means they're in our building for 90
Exactly.
minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, so we can do a Corey check on them.
Is that okay with your program? Familiar with
Yes,
Corey's?
we through the YMCA, all of our staff are quarried and sorried. We do not quarry and sorry the parents who attend our program in the other towns, but that would be okay in some other programs such as this that are located in school systems. The parents do have to be quarried and
So
sorted.
does it just become part of your registration process, or is it something that our building is going to have to do
Building has
on
to.
their end?
Yeah.
In your other schools, other towns in Massachusetts, are the schools doing it, or are you doing it?
I'm not sure of that answer because we haven't had to do it in these 15 towns. But for example, I know in a Worcester school system, they do have to quarry and sorry. I'm not too sure if the school takes
Yeah,
that.
Pretty sure it has to be done
we'd
through
probably
our
take care of
school.
that. We would do that. But
I think we would have to.
Yeah, we're responsible
Yeah.
for that.
That was your question?
That was my question.
That was your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fine that they're gonna be in the class for 90 minutes, but somebody may have to go to the bathroom and you're not gonna escort them, et cetera, so.
Yeah. And the way I look at it, we just recently had kindergarten screening for next year's incoming kindergartners, and there were a lot of children that had truly no prior experience whatsoever. Mom or dad or babysitter, and that's it. So this would be a good stepping stone for them. It's a good, and it gets them in our building. It gets families in our building, which I think that's always a good thing. That's going to be a positive, particularly with the climate we're in lately. I think the more people in our building, longer period of time, that's got to be a good thing.
And the rooms that you're considering are appropriate for your needs?
Yes, I visited and Steve showed me the room that we talked about it, and yes.
Anything else?
Is there a cost to our district for quarries?
No.
But again, so basically, we're trying out, the first program will be 6 weeks long. And if it's well-attended, that could continue to another, to another, to another. So we're not really looking for a year-long commitment right now, but we're going to start with one and see where it goes, see how it builds. You know, in perfect world, we would go 6 weeks, one rolling right after another, and we'd go right through to June.
Sure. And
But-
have them every day.
Let's wait and see. See how it's supported.
Take mine away.
How many are you going to bring?
All of them. Awesome, Sarah.
I would entertain a motion to allow a trial for 6 weeks.
I will make a motion to allow a trial for 6 weeks pending
Providing
query
for-
checks.
Okay.
And
That's fair.
anything
Of
else
any
anyone wants to-
adult participant.
Of any adult participant that's entering our building, yes.
Okay,
Second.
second by Bethany. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome to
Thank
Blackstone.
you
Thank you very much.
I wish you success.
Thank you very much.
We'll let you know how it goes. We'll come and report after the
I
first
hope for
session.
another 6 weeks. There we go.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll continue on our meeting of a public forum if anybody has anything they would like to discuss that does not pertain to the budget. Okay, moving on. Consent agenda A.
Do not say yes.
Entertain a motion to approve consent agenda A. Warrants, minutes of meeting, and I think there's one field trip.
So move.
Moved by Jack,
Second.
second by Tammy. You guys are making this.
The minutes are in there, so you can't.
Oh, I can't say, okay, I have to abstain.
Oh, so we will separate out the minutes then. We'll do warrants and field trips. All those in favor of approving warrants and field trip signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can we just say that we're approving the Nature's Classroom field trip for November 19th and 20th for any incoming sixth grade families, so they
They
are
know.
Have
aware
the
of that
dates?
date. That's Thanksgiving,
It was this year, too.
probably.
Yeah, it was the same week this year.
That's a good time to go.
And the minutes, motion to approve the minutes of the June 14th school committee meeting. Moved by Aaron,
Second.
seconded by Jack. Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? All in favor.
And I abstained.
Did you abstain? One abstain.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Sarah.
Wasn't there. I don't know what you guys were up to.
I am going to move to the report of the superintendent, item E, vote to authorize the JFK project.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Reggio. As everyone knows, MSBA has been busy with our schools, judging if they are accepting them for reimbursement on much-needed renovations. So the Kennedy project has been well on its way. We're at the point where last night, Blackstone's town meeting universally approved the approval of the full project funding, which is $4.6 million. And tonight, we need a motion to authorize the Blackstone Millville Regional School District to authorize the borrowing. You have to authorize the entire project. That is how the rules are set up by the school building authority. But the reimbursement is 57.74%. So on a $4.6 million project, the cost to the town is estimated to be somewhere slightly under $2 million. But I will read the motion, and then I can certainly fill you in on the other projects that are before us. So this is a motion to vote that the Blackstone Millville Regional School District hereby authorizes the borrowing of the amount of $4,611,588 for the purpose of paying the cost of windows and doors and boiler replacement project at the John F. Kennedy Elementary School, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, the project, which proposed repair project would materially extend the useful life of the school and preserve an asset that otherwise is capable of supporting the required educational program, and for which the district may be eligible for a school construction grant from the Mass School Building Authority. Said amount to be expended at the direction of the Blackstone Millville Regional School District School Committee. To meet this appropriation, the district is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Chapter 71, Section 16D of the general laws and the district agreement as amended or pursuant to any other enabling authority. And that any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the Mass General Laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. The district acknowledges that the MSBA grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any project costs the district incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the district. Provided further that any grant that the district may receive from the School Building Authority shall not exceed the lesser of 1, 57.74% of eligible approved project costs as determined by the MSBA, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA, and the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the project funding agreement that may be executed between the district and the School Building Authority. So that's the motion that the committee needs to approve for this project to continue. At the Board of Directors meeting yesterday morning in Boston, the School Building Authority approved this project cost in the amount of $4.6 million. They also approved the boiler replacement project for the Millville Elementary School, and hopefully as well the oil tank piping and replacement. They did not approve the windows and doors at Millville Elementary, strictly the boilers. They did not approve the Maloney project that was submitted. The other project that is still before us is the high school core renovation project, and those projects are expected to receive invitations in the November-December timeframe. So the motion before us is simply for the committee to authorize the borrowing in the full amount of the JFK project.
So I will entertain a motion on the authorizing the borrowing for the JFK Accelerated Repair Project as read. So moved. Moved by Aaron, seconded by Tara.
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions?
Do we have an estimated completion date?
Yes.
I knew you would.
So the way these projects move, when you get into windows and doors, there's only several factories that manufacture school windows, and they have a rather long lead time. So the project, as it moves forward, would measure and order the windows, and they would probably be looking to be installed at the end of the upcoming school year in June. The boiler replacement would probably begin shortly after the heating season ends. So we would have one more winter to Band-Aid our boilers at the Kennedy School. So the project should be complete by August of 2019.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I just want to thank the taxpayers of Blackstone for coming out. We were a little nervous on the quorum when we first arrived at 10 of 7. And just want to thank them for supporting the schools and keeping our kids warm and safe. That's all.
Any other discussion, questions, or comments? All those in favor on the motion as read signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so approved.
Thank you. Just as a quick wrap-up, so the next steps on the Millville project are that project has been invited forward by MSBA, and then they will be reaching out to the district and to the school committee for the next steps on that, which would be a schematic funding, much as we just completed a few months back on on the Kennedy School. So that will be the next steps for Millville. That is good news for all, to replace those boilers, as well as hopefully the oil tank piping and replacement.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
Because I believe there might be some confusion in this room. The Millville School Building is owned by the town of Millville. The Blackstone Complex, the JFK and AFM building are owned by the town of Blackstone. The borrowing is going through us because we have access to MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, who provides that reimbursement. But the towns are paying for their own projects equally. This is not a school budget funding request at all. We're essentially extending a discount to them that we are eligible for as a school through the state of Massachusetts. So just to make sure everyone knows that the town of Blackstone is paying for the renovations on their own building.
Has Millville on there. So, all right. We are going to move to FY19 budget discussion. I know that there has been a lot of discussion in social media. I know that people are very passionate about the school budget, and I know that we can have a passionate and respectful discussion as we move forward tonight. This is an opportunity. The town of Millville had an opportunity to review the original budget request and the revised adopted budget by the school committee and made some choices. The town of Blackstone had an opportunity to review the original budget and the recertified adopted budget, and it made its choices. And now is an opportunity for the school committee to make their choices as how we move forward with the budget. So the decision-making process is ours. It is a difficult one. We take suggestions, advice, but not insult. We will listen to the leadership team because that's why we hired them. We listen to our current superintendent, our business manager, our upcoming superintendent, and we'll listen to you. So we will have an opportunity for public forum in our discussion, but I am going to start with Mr. Himmelberger and Wen, because they have looked at our adopted budget, our current one that we did on May 30th, and they have one option to propose to us. So I don't know who wants to start.
Thank you, Mrs. Reggio.
You guys.
So as everyone has been following along, this school budget is a challenging one, and we are not the only district facing that. We also know that at the state level, we were disappointed at the beginning of the state budget process. And there were signals 2.5, 3 weeks ago that the state budget would be more favorable to regional districts, and that has come to fruition. If you remember, at the June 14th meeting, Mrs. Cobb looked at a potential of $248,000 of additional revenues and offsets. And while the district is not in a strong financial position, as measured by the percentage that we have currently in our excess and deficiency account, we also understand and respect the positions of our member towns. So we looked at the May 30th recertification of the school budget, which was $22,623,707, and the recertification vote last night in Millville did not approve an additional $39,362, coupled with $99,425 that were appropriated in Blackstone. That would either require a couple of paths to be taken. One would be that the school committee could recertify to the lower number, approximately $22,484,000, which would match what both towns have already voted on. They can also look at holding a district-wide super town meeting, as it's called, a district-wide town meeting, in which case both boards of selectmen would then choose a mutually agreed-upon moderator, and that meeting would typically be held at the end of July, and that's a simple majority vote of whoever shows up from both towns. Mrs. Cobb has looked at other revenue sources, and the committee has in their packet additional funds that could be used to meet the $22,623,707 budget, which has already been reduced by the leadership team, and the cuts have been made. So we laid off or non-renewed or RIFed, reduced and forced, 11 positions. We did not replace several retirees, and we also did not add any of the new requested positions. So our school district, we have a delicate balancing act and a challenging message to send to parents and families. The bottom line is we have a strong district that educates students wonderfully. We have as dedicated and driven and talented a staff as you could ask for. And I don't want that to get lost in the conversation, which granted is a difficult one, regardless of if you're a parent of toddlers or you're a grandparent whose children have long moved away from the district. It is a challenging one. But we believe, given the additional sources of funds that we see, we can take $68,000 from our E&D account, and we can use what we believe to be a significant increase in our Chapter 71 money to offset the gap. And the bottom line here is what's best for our children. Because what's best for our children is ultimately what's best for us as parents, as taxpayers, as voters of both communities. Because we are all in this together. And that, I think, is what's most important when we get into the heat of the discussion. Because we all have strong opinions. One town thinks they're doing too much, another town needs some breathing room, fingers are being pointed. It's just not what we teach our children. And so, I want to thank Mrs. Cobb for looking and re-looking at all of the numbers and what we believe is an alternative. Yes, it will be a financial burden to the district, but it will allow us to deliver our educational opportunities for all students at a level that we have reduced to. That's the $22,623,707 number. And we can look at the history and see how we have been able to maneuver over the years. But as I certainly over the last 4 years shake the hand of all of our graduates, I can tell you that they all are well prepared to move forward as graduates and alumni of BMR. So that's what we have in front of the committee, and that's one option to move forward.
So Wen, could you take a few minutes and tell us essentially what was just described is that Millville and Blackstone would have a supplemental investments to the lower amount, which is what Millville has approved in its budget. Mm-hmm. So what you replace that with?
So Because of the town's vote last night, we assessed Blackstone 99,425 and Millville 39,362. So we decided to keep the operation budget at the same number and use the E&D and the increase of the revenue to offset the total of 138,786. So in the new motion, you want to take us through
Just tell us
what's been changed?
what's been changed.
Right.
Yeah.
So motion number 2, 3, 4, 5 has been changed. Motion number 2, regional school district reimbursement changed from 472,648 to 542,648. That's a 70,000 increase. It's because we just received our total reimbursement from the state for year 18, and it was a big increase, 60,000 increase from DOR cherry sheet. So total is 565,000, and we budgeted only 504. Not from me. It's from DOR cherry sheet. Only budgeted 504. So that's 60,000. Can be bring back to the budget. And motion 3, number 3, it just the number just be reduced,
Been reduced
to
to the-
reflect
to the-
the decrease. And motion number 5,
Same thing.
we add. Yeah, the
3 and
motion
4 are
number
the same
4
thing.
is same thing, and the number 5 is the E&D. So we use E&D to recover the rest of the deficit.
And what would that leave our E&D at?
Okay, so after we close
Approximately.
this year, we actually will see a increased number of E&D. The reason why is because during year 18, we received about $10 per student in Chapter 70, and transportation, like I said, we had increase. We originally budget 65%, and we received about 80%, close to 80% reimbursement from transportation. And circuit breaker, I don't have the final number yet, but it should be an increase too. Also, we were going to discuss tonight, but we won't. There possibly more money from the capital project close to E&D.
So how much is, if we didn't have this reduction or in the E&D, how much is going in? What's the final number going in?
I don't have the final number.
Okay.
I don't have the final number, but the estimate is we will have about, don't take my word for that, just the estimate.
Approximate.
220,000 before we put in this number.
Before we put in, but then before we take out the 68?
So what
Before
is
we
our
take out the
E&D
68.
certified at? What are we certified at for this year?
Right now,
E&D.
about 380.
Which is nowhere close to our 5%.
The lowest it's ever
No,
been.
it's about 1.7%.
Yeah.
1.7%?
Yeah.
And we're recommended to keep it at 5% of our.
No, we can't go above
Can't go
5%.
go over 5%.
Can't go above.
So,
So potentially
that-
with these changes and not knowing what circuit breaker would do,
right.
we would start next year with an E&D of about 220.
220 plus,
Plus.
220 more
It's the 380.
on top of this year.
Oh, on top, 220 on top of the 380.
So
Right.
about 600,000.
And if we take out that 68,000, we'll leave our E&D at about 2.5%.
Okay. That makes it a little better.
Mm.
Then we're going down to 220. All right.
Any questions?
Any questions of when?
Going back to 2 weeks ago when you handed us this sheet, do the, except for, so my first question is, what percentage are you calculating transportation at with this
With that
quote of
sheet?
$542,000 reimbursement? What is the percentage coming back to us?
So my assumption is we keep the same level of transportation cost.
Reimbursement?
No, the cost, the base of reimbursement. This year, we received the 565 at about 79%. So 542 will be between 77, 78%.
So the
I-
542 is 78%?
Yeah, I just simply add 70,000 to transportation.
But what are you getting off the cherry sheets for a reimbursement?
Cherry sheet,
What are you getting from the state as a percentage
right
reimbursement for
now,
transportation?
we're getting 79% this year.
Okay. And so going back to this list from 2 weeks ago, does this still remain intact, the top of our list with the $139,000?
That number includes the $139. So I'll take you over. So last meeting, I said $248,000, and then we lost 140 from the towns, and then that leaves us 108,000. And we budgeted 70,000 more for transportation, and from Chapter 70, circuit breaker, and school choice, we budget about 40 more. So we added 110,000 back to the chunk of money.
So 2 weeks ago, you gave us a total anticipated additional funding of $248,000.
Right.
What is that number today?
What is the number today? After the E&D being used in this budget, will be about 150.
Okay. So essentially, we have before us, and if anybody else has an option number 4, but 3 options. We could recertify and adopt a new budget based on the lower amounts, percentage of Millville. We have option number 2, which is to ask for a super town meeting to let the, no, I'm sorry, it's not called that. It's called district-wide community meeting by state law to let both towns and any voters that show up on a designated evening to set a budget for next year, which the school committee could then adopt or not, certify or not, based on the result of that meeting. That process would entail the district going into a 1/12 budget, which we need to notify the state by July 1st, so essentially by tomorrow, that we're choosing to go in that direction, and we need to request a 1/12 budget. It is not an automatic guarantee. And the third option would be to recertify at the same number that we already have, but shift the motions of where that money is coming from. So at this point, I will open up to public forum for anyone that would like to comment.
Hi, Wendy Greenstein, 4 Liberty Hill Drive in Blackstone. I have a question about option number 1. So option number 1 would be to recertify at a lower number. So I have a question about class size. So money is coming in from the state, and I do understand that. So my question would be, if we recertify at a lower number, is the first grade class in Blackstone, and I don't have a first grader, but is it still at 28?
That's a good question, and I would say that it will be, definitely be in that range.
And is the first
If we
grade,
certify at the lower number.
and is the first grade class in Millville 19?
I don't believe so.
Do we have a number of the first grade class, just so I can
don't believe so.
compare?
The emphasis was on equity.
Proposal had shown 125, one first grade at 25, and then 1 split the second grade class for a total of 24, and I don't know what the breakdown was there.
Okay, so, but that was if we recertified, so the class sizes wouldn't change. So even though the money's coming in, and the recertification at a lower number, the class sizes wouldn't change, is that accurate?
We made a commitment as a school committee, and I believe stuck with this commitment, that any additional monies above or beyond that can support this budget would first go to the reduction of class sizes at JFK AFM.
But the recertification number would be lower. So essentially, even though money's coming in, it's not going to affect the class size per se. Is that accurate to say? In that option 1?
In option 1, you are likely correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
So I have a question about that, because we did make a commitment as a committee that if there was any additional funding, we were going to use it for staff. I believe we have a motion that was voted on here. So why is this the first time we're ever talking about E&D being used? Since January, February, March, April, and May, all the hours and times we've sat at these tables, E&D was not an option. Why is tonight, the first night we're looking to put ourselves at risk? And because honestly, 2 weeks ago, I would have loved to have said, let's take 100,000 out of E&D and add two of these teachers back. And it was never an option for the kids. So why is it tonight?
Happy to answer that. So, Mrs. Vanaco, E&D fluctuates with the closing of the books, with a lot of other accounts. We just found out this past Monday, that we are going to have what looks like about $35,000 or $36,000 from the closing out of a fund that was opened 15 years ago for a sewer project. That we didn't know about.
Then that should be going to teachers, to staffing in our buildings.
Well, that's what we all are planning to do. I don't think anyone is saying, let's not take every spare dollar and start putting hiring teachers back especially into Kennedy and Maloney.
Actually, I think you just said, let's not do that.
No.
You're cutting, like, any money we had found, which
Option
we were
3 is
looking
exact
at.
The opposite of that. It's taking the spare dollars and putting it in.
And, right, it's
But
taking that.
Alan said he had one option for us.
No, 3.
You have 3.
No, he
His third
listed
option,
3.
his option.
Believe me,
option
I'm
number
leaving,
3 is-
tomorrow's my last day.
Exactly
You
that.
guys have, it's up to the committee to do whatever you want. All I am saying is that whatever dollars are available when we finally close out the books, when we finally get all of our dollars from the state, of course, we're going to look to reduce class sizes in our elementary schools. That's what everybody wants to do. You can't debate that. That's what we want to do. We're not putting money, we're already with an excess and deficiency account that is far below what any financial analyst would recommend.
So why are we
So
using
why
it?
is it being
So
brought
why are we
to
using
a
it?
public
Because
recommendation?
where it was at 1.6% will now probably be up around 2.5%.
Which is
the
still well
numbers-
below where we, as many years ago, when Steve was sitting here, and Wendy, we were committed to not going below 500,000, then 400,000, and
Okay.
today we're at 3.
And
So.
I'm going to end this discussion because we are still in a public forum. We will have opportunity for our discussion and examine all of the 3 options and why more money has become available in the E&D account or any other questions people might have. But I'm going to end that right now and ask if there's any other comments, please.
Mary Bolso for Patricia Drive, Blackstone.
I'm sorry, could you speak?
Mary Bolso for Patricia Drive, Blackstone. My understanding is we are receiving more funds, but we are already $1.5 million down. And it seems to me we should use the additional funds for relief in the debt we already had and bring back some of the teachers. I do not have any children in the school system anymore, but my kids did fine here, and that's my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Justine Ravito, Blackstone. So I guess I think what it was kind of confusing to understand all the numbers and where things are coming from. But is it an option to still go to super town meeting, whatever we want to call it, but then also have these additional funds?
Yes.
So what option is that on your list? Is that option 2?
It would be 2.
But that doesn't mean that all of the other options of the $68,000 or whatever it is, that is also still in play.
That money would just go right into E&D.
But it wouldn't go back to the teachers.
It could be used, but it would go into E&D as we certify the budget.
So it would affect the class sizes then.
Why would that?
Why does it have to go to E&D?
I think that's where it's slated for, right? So right now we're looking at a $220,000 increase to E&D if we approved the budget with money from Millville and Blackstone, the $139,000. But if we approved it without that $139,000, we'd be taking $68,000 from E&D, or from the proposed increase to E&D, which would make our increase to E&D this year $160,000.
Technically, it has to go in at the end of this year and then come out of the balance. So it's a certification process. No matter what, it's going in.
No,
We can't move it into next year's, the FY19 line items without taking it out of E&D.
But it would still go back into the budget to be used to making the classroom sizes
It would be
smaller.
available.
At a lower
That's
amount on option 2. What is it? Can you repeat option 2?
Yeah, maybe. I guess there is an option 4, quite frankly. Because option 1 is to recertify at the lower amounts. So to match the Millville amount. Essentially lose 139,000 something dollars off of the 23,707 that we certified on May 30th. That's option number 1. Recertify at a lower amount. Option number 2 is for a district-wide town meeting to be held sometime, probably in the end of July, and that is to vote on a school budget. So that could increase the current adopted budget, that could decrease the current adopted budget. The school committee's responsibility for that meeting would be to go to the town voters, both towns, with a budget, but it can be amended at that meeting. It can be increased, it can be decreased, it can be whatever. As a result of that meeting, whatever the result is, positive, negative, it comes back to the school committee, and the school committee can either certify that voted budget or call another district town meeting. This can go on and on. So option 2 lets us set a budget, and we can use any of those sources and go to a district town meeting, okay? So yes, it could go into E&D, or yes, it could become out of E&D to support additional teachers. Option 2 is an umbrella. Option 3 is to use those other revenue sources to offset what the town had either voted or support, and keeps the budget at $22,623,707.
Okay. I guess, I mean, just from, a parent of a child in the school district, I would prefer that we go with the super town meeting and let the voters' voice be heard on this, because it's important. I don't think that we should certify at a lower number. I mean, that's not going to help our kids and help the class sizes, which we've heard over and over is important. So I think maybe we should show how important that is by making that decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you're probably all really glad I came. Paul Willett, soon to be ex-chairman of the Finance Committee. So I have to say, sitting in the audience, I'm actually happy about the fact that there is an option 3. I like the option 3. I think what that does is that gives the school district the opportunity to stick with the budget that they've already certified, but it also gives the alternate funding sources. So it kind of makes everybody happy. Nobody's happy in any of this, but it kind of satisfies the needs that have been put forth by keeping that certified budget at the level that you've certified it at, but also not requiring the additional funds from Millville, who's still has a structural deficit of $250,000. So I just wanted to say that I'm very glad that the only two options aren't super town meeting and a 1/12 budget or recertifying at a lower number. I'm kind of glad that there's a third option, and I think that's an excellent option to pursue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Jennifer Gill, and I do have two daughters who attend Millville Elementary School and will be attending again in the fall. And I would also like us not to go to a super town meeting, just because for the reasons that Jane had stated, that if the $40,000, we don't have that, but if someone puts forward a motion and says, let's make it $500,000, Millville will be in even more trouble than we already are financially. So the fact that it could go, because Jane mentioned it can increase or decrease.
Yes, we can.
Yep, it can be amended on the floor.
Yes,
It could be amended to
on the
have
floor.
no additional
You can vote it.
contribution on the floor.
Good, then we could bring all of our teachers back
So,
and lower our class sizes.
Or lose all of our additional contribution.
well, for the town of Millville and the financial state that we're in, that's a terrifying option. That it could go higher and we would be in an even more challenging position.
Millville have the opportunity to vote their override.
Okay, we're listening to public forum. We'll have our opportunity. Thank you.
And I just want to say I agreed with Mr. Willett, that I'm glad that there is a third option and that there is an opportunity for Millville to kind of go back to our own town finances, figure things out over the next year, and then hopefully next year we'll be in a very different situation and having a very different conversation, which I'm hopeful about. But in the meantime, we don't have that option right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, come on.
Again, Cecilia Doyle. I'm just wondering if there's anybody here in this room that can answer a question yet as to the exact number of positions and sections that will be at the complex and at MES for grades kindergarten through 5. Because as of the last day of school, we still don't know.
And we still do not know.
We still do not know.
Still do not know.
So what has changed since the meeting we had when we heard that there were 5 sections of K, and I believe it was 3 sections of first grade and 3 sections of second grade? And I've lost my numbers on
Nothing has
AFM.
changed. We, as a school committee, committed to having 5 sections of kindergarten, regardless of the budget numbers, and making that work. That was the only commitment we made. We have no certified budget, so we have no bottom line. So we know not what we can do.
Okay.
And those decisions are made and suggested to the school committee as part of a process through the leadership team and through the what will now be the new superintendent, because this one, its last day is tomorrow. We will not, well, I can't say that, but we may not have certified budget tomorrow. We may.
So teachers that are still in limbo because we don't know if there will be 4 first grades or 3 first grades or how many second grades. Third grade right now looks at 3 sections. None of that has changed since we've heard about all this additional money, and there's nothing been committed to class sizes and number of sections.
The only thing that we have committed is that is our first priority.
Okay.
So before we add paint to walls, or whatever the case may be, we will look at class sizes, and we will start with JFK AFM.
And it's likely that we may not know anything until after a super town meeting, because it sounds like that's one of our options.
That's one of the options.
Could continue in limbo for quite a while. Okay, just trying to get it all straight, because it's still very confusing.
It is. Anybody else? Okay. So before we begin our discussion, we do have options available to us. If somebody has a 4th option, we certainly can add that to the list. We should discuss each of those options, but we should discuss them from a standpoint of our mission, and that is to educate this the children in the communities of Blackstone and Millville. It is not to argue what Millville can or can't afford. They had an opportunity to afford it all and they chose not to. It's not to say what Blackstone can or cannot afford. They chose to add more to the request that their Board of Selectmen approved because they had the ability to do so. That is not our discussion. Our discussion is what is best for the students, how do we meet their needs, how do we meet the goals of our district improvement plan, of our school improvement plans, of our own goals, and move this district forward in the best opportunity for the students. We did receive numerous emails, I guess the best way, of support for looking for the best potential in a super town meeting. The overwhelming majority of those were for a meeting, but many of the people who could either not attend Millville's meeting last night or could not attend our meeting tonight. And please understand that if we set a district-wide community meeting, there's no guarantee that people can attend those nights either. So it will be what it will be. We all also received a email from Dr. DeFalco. I'm trying to look for it. Does anybody have it quickly handy? Yes, you do. Thank you. Who is our incoming superintendent starting on July 2nd. And it says, "Good afternoon, school committee members. I hope this email finds everyone well and enjoying the week. Congratulations on wrapping up another school year. Thank you very much to everyone for the texts, emails, and calls about last night's budget decision. Ultimately, the school committee has to decide what to do next, certify the budget, or call a," he says, super town meeting, but district-wide community meeting for the additional $139,000. And I thought it might be helpful to share some of my thinking on this issue. First and foremost, it's important to state right out front that I'm a fierce advocate for children and have taken on many budget battles. However, I'm not sure this is one to take on at this time. Here is some of my thinking around why. You will see tonight from when that we can certify the higher budget number without going back to the towns due to an increase in reimbursement from transportation and additional funds in E&D. Administration has already gone through and made the difficult budget cuts that are necessary and are working diligently with staff to plan accordingly. Certifying will allow us to have a fixed number for July 1, and we can immediately get moving on the work. While $139K is a lot of money, I would rather spend the time building relationships with the two communities and trying to bring them together around the work/new strategic plan instead of causing a deeper battle over fiscal resources. I really appreciate the time and attention and look forward to hearing how this works out. Respectfully, Jason DeFalco, EDD. I also want to take a minute to talk about a district-wide community meeting and what that would mean. There is a state law that pertains to, specifically to budget appropriations and expenses, Title 12, Chapter 71, 16B, that outlines how a district-wide community meeting would take place, and it would need to start with the boards of selectmen from both towns coming together with the school committee to decide a date that works for that meeting. The Board of Selectmen in both towns agree to a moderator for the meeting, and they have to jointly agree on a person. The expense of a super town meeting is all borne by the school committee, so it would come out of our budget for next year, any expenses. We would need to make sure that we had the town clerks from both of the towns to certify any voters that attended the meeting, so we'd have to check with the town clerks as appropriate dates for the meeting because they would have to be present. And whatever budget is approved or is put forth at that meeting can be amended on the floor to be increased or reduced. If that motion passes, whatever it ends up being on the floor, it comes back to the school committee for their final certification of a budget. If they choose not to certify, it could go back to another. In the meantime, we have to apply to the state to use any funds to maintain the district, and what those funds are based on 1/12 of this year's current budget. So not the budget we would be requesting, but 1/12 of this year's current budget. That can continue monthly until December 1st. If no budget is reached by December 1st, then the state takes over the school system. And that's how a district-wide community meeting, we do have that outlined in the Chapter 7116B, and it also is a policy, a budget adoption procedure policy, DBG, in the Blackstone Regional District School Committee policies. So at this time, I will entertain discussion on any of those options or a fourth option that anyone might see.
Could you just review option number 3 again, please?
Okay. Do you mind if I say them all? Because I'm not really
Sure.
what order they are in. Option number 1 would be to recertify at a lower amount, $22,484,000, which matches the lower Millville assessment, and
That one's not
Blackstone would
happening. We
reduce
should
to
just-
$797. What?
We should eliminate that one. Can I make a motion to eliminate
May I just
option 1?
clarify, option number 1 means we would need to make an additional cut from the in addition to the 1.5 million already cut, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So you want to do
Can
what?
I make a motion to eliminate option 1 from our list?
There's
Can
a
I-
motion on the
Second.
floor.
I need to ask a question about how that one works.
Yep.
though. Because if our E&D is increasing by 220,000, but then we cut our budget, that money doesn't not go into E&D, does it? It still goes into E&D, right?
Goes into E&D,
Sees
yeah.
in the ND.
That's this year's budget.
Yeah.
So then, but our E&D budget, all right,
grow.
our E&D account would go up by $220,000.
Correct.
So that money would still be accessible for next year. So if we wanted to, we could use that money.
At the end of, when we're creating next year's budget, we can
Put it into the following.
put it into
Okay.
a following, which is what we've been able to do in the past, which is why our number is so low at this
Gotcha.
point.
All right.
Because this is the first year, Ellen, correct me if I'm wrong, that we were not ever advised that we could use any of that money until today. But it's always been a source of revenue listed on our budgets in the past 6 years.
Yeah. There's a motion on the floor by Karen
I
to,
second.
and it's seconded by Aaron to remove item 1. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of eliminating option number 1 to recertify at a lower amount signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we are not going to go lower. Option number 2 is for a district-wide town meeting to be held sometime toward the end of July or early August, based on meetings with the both town Board of Selectmen and town clerks to come up with a date. And that, we set a budget. We could put the budget we currently have. We set a budget, certify a budget to go into that meeting with, and then that is the budget that is included in the warrant, and that's the item on the floor, and that's what's up for debate, discussion, amendment.
So we would be.
And that would mean a 1/12 budget to operate the district in the beginning of the academic year, because there is no way, it takes a minimum of 14 days to post for that meeting, and there's no way that you would get a meeting with the Board of Selectmen and town clerks and come up with a date and do that within 14 days. So it would be a while. And option number 3 is to use other revenue sources, regional transportation increases, and some E&D to offset the town amounts, and make the town amounts the lower amount, but still have a budget of $22,623,707. So we have option 2 and option 3 on the floor that we'll still have under discussion.
Just
So is
regarding,
the- Sorry, go ahead.
regarding option 3, didn't we take a vote 2 meetings ago about basically earmarking any increases in state aid to offset staff reductions? Just question.
I think we motioned it as any additional funding, whether it be from us making motions and we eliminated technology, or state funding. I think it was just the words additional, any additional funds.
Right, because we had taken out the Chromebooks.
Right.
So I guess I was trying to get to that question, to when, on this list here. Is this still as it stood 2 weeks ago, which was department head stipends were reduced? With what you're recommending today, The Chromebook initiative for middle school is reduced. The technician is reduced. Is all of that still out of the budget as we motioned as of today with your recommendation? Yes?
And Alan, there's no changes from leadership that we don't know about, as far as class size or shifting of the multi-grades or any of that? It's
No.
all as we left it?
It's all as we left it. However, it's, if I may,
You may.
it's important to note the value of having a budget on July 1st. And I know that you don't need to hear it from me, but you did hear it from Dr. DeFalco. The intent will always be to put teachers in the classroom. And I think, you know, if the committee decides that they want to go with a district-wide town meeting, that puts a tremendous strain on the operation of the district. I think that's all I'll say.
May I ask what type of strain that is? So I asked you today in an email what 1/12 is, and it's 1.8 million per month is what essentially our 1/12 would be, correct?
Yeah.
So last July, we spent 1.2 billion. August, we spent 662,000, and we weren't operating on a 1/12 budget. And in September, it was also under $1 million.
Don't know if I would agree with those numbers, but however. what
Actually, I
happened-
printed the vouchers.
What happened 2 years ago,
2 years ago, we weren't able to purchase, but we don't have any big purchases in this budget, correct? Because of our 1.5 million in reductions.
When this may be a question you cannot answer without your two computer screens in front of you, but do you have given the increase in salary and the increase in steps, approximately what a monthly payroll is? You may not.
Monique, shake your hand.
Monique,
We
you
don't
even
know.
know?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know.
I just remember last time that we went to 1/12, being very nervous that by month 2, we might not make the payroll.
I'm sorry.
You look like you have.
No, I
Well,
was
we were just talking
processing
about
what Bethany
the
was saying.
complex. So I feel like 2 meetings ago, we talked about a first and second grade combined, like offsetting those numbers, and possibly a third and fourth grade combined at the complex. Not at, we already know Millville Elementary is going that way. And so I was just trying to figure out, like, the Chromebook money, was that one teacher that we were going to put back at the complex?
So that was the motion we made. It was, the cuts to technology totaled $63,000. We wanted to allot them to the elementary classrooms. Discussion was if enough money, also create a 1-2 or a 3-4 at the complex. We did make that motion.
Yeah, I don't know that we know what monies we have available until we have monies available. And I know that sounds flippant, but I mean, we don't know what is available to us until we make a decision. You know, we have waited on towns and we've done the process appropriately. We're still doing the process appropriately. And until this flushes out, we don't know. So to try to say, we want this many teachers here, or we want this here, we don't know what we have. So today, we really have to focus on how are we going to, what is the importance of getting to that bottom number? When is the importance of getting to that bottom number? And how do we get to the bottom number? Given our options, and maybe somebody has a fourth option, I don't know, that may be out there. But I will tell you, we have no more public forum
Okay,
at this
I
time.
asked. Yep.
Thank you. Not that we won't again, but this is our time to try to flesh this out, so.
Jane, I have some information pertinent to your discussion about the 1/12 budget. It does not include exclusionary and transportation. It's 1/12 1/12 of your operating budget without exclusionary and transportation, according to the DESC at their last meeting that they had here. So it's not $1.8 million. It's take away all that stuff and then divide it by 12.
So I'd have to get further.
Yeah, we'd have to look, because we both talked to different people today, yeah, with our number. Yeah. So not sure on that. We've gotten different.
The number that was quoted to us was 1.871. $1,871,539.
Jane, if I could.
Yes, please.
So first, I'd like to address something you said in your opening about not considering the ability of either town, whether they can or can't pay it. I think that that would be irresponsible of us, because though our job, our number one job, is to provide the best education we can for the students, I think it's just irresponsible to not consider the town's financial situation when you're discussing how to spend the money you get from those towns. The first thing I'd like to say about whether option 2 or option 3 is the best one is I don't think it's right for us to be hypocritical and not spend money we might have in E&D in order to further hurt Millville's overall budget. It's not our intention to hurt any budgets, but it would be the result. It would make Millville's job harder when we have the same opportunity to spend money that we do have, money that they're already in a deficit and we have money in E&D. So we're not in a deficit if we spend our E&D money. They are already in a deficit. Second, I think it's in the best interest of our students and our towns and everybody if we have properly functioning towns. And in the long term, the best way to do that is to spend the money out of our E&D, go with option 3, not option 2. That's where I stand. Thank you.
Tammy.
So I was elected by the Blackstone town peoples to ensure that their children, includes my child, gets the best possible education. We're talking about this money that we didn't know about 2 weeks ago as additional money. We certified a much higher number, and in our effort to play nicely in the sandbox, to quote Dan Keefe, we reduced that number significantly. And although there were side conversations about the $100,000 that the Blackstone FinCom approved, we here in this committee we never agreed to that lower number. We knew that we needed every penny we could get from every source we can find to fund our children's education. We are contemplating at some point in this process 25 kindergartners with 1 teacher and maybe a part-time aide. I was a mother of 2 kids in that age group at once, and I thought I was not going to survive that experience. So to ask somebody, a teacher, Ms. Doyle, to do 25, that's 25 noses, that's 50 shoe ties, that's crazy. And but yet we're talking about now using RE&D, which I thought I heard people say we could use towards a teacher to sort of bail out Millville. I think we need every penny we can get. We have tried to play nice in the sandbox for as long as I've been involved as a parent in this district. At some point, something has to give. And I can appreciate, and I'm so sorry to Dr. DeFalco, I know he's not here, I'm sure he's watching somewhere. I can appreciate the difficulty of the 1/12 budget. But what about, that's gonna be a 2-month, 3-month issue at the most. These teachers have to deal with 28 students, and our children, our first graders, have to try to learn next to 27 other kids. And oh, by the way, we're dealing with society has kind of played a twist and turn, and those kids aren't all ready to learn. And the challenges there require us to make the smallest classroom size we can. And to sit here and give away money and use E&D to offset somebody else's issue is just insane to me. We received, I personally, and I think you all received some too, 72 citizens reached out to me from last night to this morning, or to this afternoon actually, before I got here. 66 of them urged for a town meeting. And if I read some of them, I think, you know, they're very touching in many ways. And I just can't stand by basically giving away 139,000 more and just staying status quo with 28 kids in a classroom. I just can't, I will not sleep tonight if that's the option. So that's what I'm gonna say. We have to support our kids.
Thank you, Stone.
You may.
I just would like to mention for everybody on the committee that when you pull your papers and you run for this office, your name is on the ballot in both towns. It's not a one-town deal. If we continue on this, if we take the money, if we do this, the problem persists. There's no opportunity for Millville to improve. We'll be facing the same issue next year, same story, same song and dance. Nothing will change. And this isn't somebody else's issue. This isn't Millville's issue. This is all of our issue. We can't just sit and say, we're bailing out of town. This is their issue. Their issue affects us. We are made of the two towns. There's no us without them. And that's all.
Aaron?
And Millville had the opportunity last Tuesday to increase their revenue, so this wouldn't even be a conversation. And they chose not to, Jack. And for 6 years that I've been sitting here, I won't speak deeper than that.
Expressed to the committee, not a person.
6 years, it has been the same story. Millville needed an override many years ago, whether people want to agree to that or not. We would not be sitting here today had they done it when they should have back in 2011, when we closed the library, closed the senior center, brought the town hall down, and never funded our schools with no additional contributions. And then tried to build back up at 0.7% one year, 0.1%, and we're looking at a 0.7% this year on our budget. So we're not asking them to do anything we've never asked for before. And it does affect every kid in our district when it's not funded equally. Millville has expressed since their override that they want to regionalize more services, but they don't want to keep up their deal on this one. So, which is 27% based on student enrollment. I don't see how they can sit here and not fund the one regional agreement they have with Blackstone when they're begging for help with all the others. And with that being said, I would like to make a motion that we. I'm making a motion. I can make a motion.
You can, but I still want everybody to have an opportunity.
But we can talk after the motion's on the floor. So my motion would be to recertify our budget as it stood, and that can be open for discussion once the motion's on the floor. Because no matter what, we have to recertify to be able to move into any additional meetings.
I'm not going to entertain that motion at this time. I'm going to ask that people be very careful when they use percentages. I know that percentages have been spouted on a lot of social media, and we all use different numbers, and it depends on the different numbers that we look at. A 0.7% increase in the total school budget may in fact be a 3% increase from each of the communities in terms of supplemental investment. Money is changing constantly all of the time, and so percentages are difficult things to use. We need to be talking dollars and cents, and we need to be looking at all of the options, because I absolutely agree with Aaron. Communities had opportunities to right-size their budgets, and they cannot use the school system as an opportunity to right-size their budget. That's not an option. The school community is the largest percentage need in any community pretty much across the Commonwealth. It will be the largest part of any community's budget. And it is not getting better state-wise, federal-wise. We have heard that since Mr. Himmelberger and before him, and it is only getting worse. And we cannot be the salvation for any community. We should not be the reason any community fails, but those communities always have options. And if they choose, those are the choices that they make. And we have to make our choices based on what information we have and resources we have available to us. So I agree, Aaron. Millville had an opportunity, Blackstone had an opportunity to go with the Board of Selectmen's recommendation, and not even the Board of Selectmen supported that on the floor per se. They did in a little way, but they didn't. So, people, this is a very hot topic. People are very emotional about it, and we need to try to do it. So I will entertain your motion at this point. Your motion was?
I move to recertify our FY19 budget as it stood on May 30th, and then moving forward to a joint town meeting. Which would look like option number 2.
And not put any the additional funds on top of that at this point.
No, but people can certainly try to do that on the town floor at our joint meeting.
Okay, that's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Sarah? Okay, there is a motion to use the May 30th adopted budget, which is the one that was sent to both towns, which has the Millville supplementary investment of $897,311, and the Blackstone, or the other way around, sorry, Blackstone $897,311, Millville $337,804 for supplemental investment. None of the other numbers have changed.
Question. Ooh, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
So then,
Go ahead, Karen. I'm sorry, Jane.
So the motion that you're making, though, leaves the money in stabilization that Wen talked about. It's going to not stabilization, E&D. It's going there and it's staying there, correct?
Can be moved out.
Depends
I
what
mean, it can be moved.
the towns decide.
Okay. I just
So
wanted to clarify that.
Someone could make a motion.
So it's that same number, basically.
So I guess mine is this sort of silly question. Why do we have to recertify if this is
Well,
what
that
stands?
We don't.
We do.
It is that number.
That's part of
add that to
what
it?
you gave us.
No, it's going to
Oh,
be.
I'm sorry.
We
I
have
didn't
to
remember
recertify
that.
even
Oh.
if it's the same number on
Okay.
Jane's state law.
Oh, Jane's state. Sorry. I was
We have to
listening. I was
certify.
listening to Jane's summary. So
Jane's state
okay.
law. So, in the case of a two-member regional school district, if the appropriating authority of either member municipality votes not to appropriate the amount so appropriation, however you say that, and recertified to it, the provisions of the following paragraph shall apply. The Regional School District Committee shall convene a special district-wide meeting open to all registered voters in both municipalities, at which the amended regional school district budget proposed by the Regional School District Committee shall be considered. Such meeting shall be called pursuant to a warrant under the hands of at least a majority of the Regional School District Committee, meaning we have to have a majority of us approve a warrant for such meeting. Notice which shall be given at least 14 days prior to the date of such meeting. The warrant shall state the time, place, and purpose of the meeting, and shall be directed to the district secretary, who shall give notice to by posting a copy in the city or town clerk's office and at least 2 other public places in each member municipality, and who shall further provide notice by publishing a copy of said warrant and at least 1 newspaper in general circulation within the member municipalities. The boards of selectmen of the member municipalities shall, in a joint meeting, shall, by majority vote of those present, appoint a town moderator or any person acceptable to the boards of selectmen to act as a moderator, and the district secretary shall keep the record of such a meeting. Approval of the regional school district budget shall require affirmative vote of at least the majority of those present, and voting thereon by a counted vote. So we do not have to recertify. We have to take our adopted budget and move it to the If that is the number we choose to go to a meeting with. So really, is your motion on the floor to move to a district-wide community meeting and follow the appropriate steps?
Oh, are you looking at this, Erin?
I am.
Because our procedure seems to read a little bit differently than the law.
Can, well, law would proceed,
It's not
supersede our
going to hurt
policy.
to research.
Because I don't see in the law where it says that the amount can be changed at the meeting. I might have just missed
Oh, it's in there.
It is?
Yeah, and it was cited to me by everyone who said it, but our adoption procedures, DBG, the annual Blackstone Millville Regional School District budget, as adopted by 2/3 vote of the BMRSD School Committee, shall require the approval of 2/3 of the local appropriating authorities of the member municipalities. In the event the regional school budget is not approved by at least 2/3 of the member municipalities as required, the school committee shall have 30 days to reconsider, amend, and resubmit a budget on the basis of issues raised, which is what we did. Within 7 days following the school committee adoption of a revised budget, the treasurer shall calculate and certify the assessment for each member community and transmit the assessments and a copy of the revised budget to the member communities, which is what we did. Each member local appropriating authority shall have 45 days from the date of the regional school committee's vote to meet and consider the revised budget. If a local appropriating authority does not vote on the revised budget within the 45-day period, that member shall be deemed to have approved the revised budget, which is what Millville voted to have a special town meeting within those 45 days. If the revised budget is not approved by both members, which it was not, the regional school committee shall again reconsider, amend, and adopt a revised budget and shall convene a district-wide meeting at which the revised budget shall be placed before all voters eligible to vote at said meeting. If a majority of voters at this district-wide meeting votes to approve a revised budget, such vote shall constitute approval. If a majority of voters at this meeting votes to approve a greater or lesser amount for the budget, such amount shall be placed before the regional school committee for its ratification. If the BMRSD school committee by 2/3 vote ratifies this amount, it shall constitute approval. If the regional school committee rejects such greater or lesser amount, it shall again reconsider, amend, or adopt the revised budget and shall reconvene a district-wide meeting. So those are the two things we have in play. The chapter 71, section 16B would supersede if it's different than our, which means we'd have to amend our.
I guess the confusion is just that it says revised, but we're not revising it. We're going with the.
It says adopt, so I feel like.
We've already adopted, but we can re-adopt.
We can re-adopt.
We
just in
can
case.
certainly re-adopt.
Dot our i's and cross our t's.
We can. So that is the motion on the floor to re-adopt the May 30th budget and to move to a district-wide community meeting with that amount. And was there a second? There was. Sarah. Okay, any further discussion? That would clearly put us into a process involving legal, involving town boards of selectmen, involving town clerks and us, clearing schedules, and all the expense for such a meeting would be on us.
So, Alan, who did this 1/12 number come from today?
That came from Chris Lynch.
From, where's he from?
Chris
No,
is,
she was the lady that was
Oh.
here. at our-
she's the Department of Ed, School
Oh, okay.
Finance.
Sorry.
But to Paul's point, I will clarify that with her.
And just so everyone knows, I had written to her before I received the letter that Erin picked up from the Millville Town Council, because I was concerned that if Millville's budget was not balanced and they went to a special town meeting with a balanced budget, could they still take from the school committee, even though the school committee budget would be adopted and approved if we recertified and move forward by July 1st. And she said, no, once the budget has been accepted, it is accepted and we can move forward. So that is something that I think we need to take into consideration, that if we move to a special town meeting and district-wide community meeting, that Millville still, while it has a budget that it is operating from, is not a balanced budget, and will still attempt to balance that budget, and may in fact impact the school number in that original budget. If that makes sense. Very confusing.
Do we know what a district-wide meeting would cost us? Do we have any rough estimate? Like, what do we pay our attorney per hour, or the town clerks? Can we have a rough, is it 10 grand? Are we looking at 10 grand?
No, it'd be
It's
3,000 to
minimal.
5,000
3 to 5,000?
total. Police, legal, time.
Yeah, we'd have to have
Custodians.
an attorney at the meeting, we'd have to have.
The only expense, any copying.
And an advertisement in a community circulated newspaper in both communities.
Just a
which-
public announcement, not an
Which I don't,
advertisement.
well, how do you get an announcement? Into the announcement section? Circulated in both towns. Any other discussion?
So honestly, I'm wavering. I received 80 emails from the public today, most saying, let's go to a district-wide meeting. We want the 140,000. But if we can get the 140,000 another way, I feel, part of me is saying, why don't we just go that way, save a little money? Who knows who's going to show up to vote? Let Dr. DeFalco get rolling. What fresh start for July 1st. So that's part of me. The other part of me is saying, like, there's this extra money, Millville should be trying to figure out a little bit better their situation. My own son is going to be in the 4th grade. He'll be with 29 other kids. And I don't know, I'm torn. Like, I want a fresh start for Dr. DeFalco. I want to move on through this budget process. We have a way to get there. I want the extra money because I want to reduce class sizes. And, so I personally am wavering.
As am I.
That's honestly how I feel.
I've heard a lot about how Millville ended up in its current situation. Taking from, what do they call it, not E&D?
Stabilization.
Stabilization.
Messed it up earlier.
And now we're looking at taking from stabilization.
E&D.
Again. So, as far as hypocrisy goes, or maybe that's irony, I don't know. And I was an English teacher, I should. But taking from E&D to offset the assessments isn't something that I can get behind.
I will share that I'm in Bethany's corner of not necessarily having the answer, but I do know that, and I believe with my whole heart, this is going on my 5th year in the committee, that we hired a superintendent who has always had the best interest of the district, whether you agreed with his processes or not, whether you liked his input or not, whether you lived through his long stories or not, who has always had the best interest of the children in the district at heart. We have hired a new superintendent who we believe in strongly. I mean, we unanimously chose this person to lead our district forward, and both of those people are telling us it is very important to have some decisions July 1st, to have a budget in shape so we can give those answers of what the class sizes look like. We can give those answers, and those teachers can prepare and plan and learn about multi-classrooms, which I think they're already starting to do anyway. So I'm leaning in that direction. You all know that I voted that way before because I feel very strongly it's important to have a July 1st budget. And I understand every person's email, the people who said recertify at a lower amount and the people who said go to a super town meeting, go to a super town meeting. I do think it is important to hear the voices of the community, and there are lots of opportunities for that at both annual town meetings. I attended them both. I did not attend the special town meeting tonight, but last night, but I watched every minute of it that wasn't cut off on the live feed. And I think people need to have a voice, whether that's coming here or whether that's participating in a district-wide town meeting. And maybe we ought to have a district-wide town meeting at the start of a budget process in future years and let people hear each other before they're angry at each other, because I think that's kind of where we are now. And I agree with Dr. DeFalco that that's not a good way to start a new transition. So I am leaning towards having a July 1 budget, but the motion on the floor is to have a district-wide community meeting. So is there any other discussion? Jack?
I'd just like to say that we're all in the same boat together, and drilling holes in Millville side will sink the whole ship.
Anyone else? Would you like the opportunity for the community to have a forum again?
Sure.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to comment? Steve?
I don't envy you sitting there, and I don't envy me sitting here. But, yeah, I'm the principal of the 25 kids in the kindergarten class and the 28, 29 in grade 1 and 2. We've been wrestling with that since the winter, I seem, and I'm not sure where to go with it. I'm truly not. I think the news that we have more money in E&D than we originally thought, that's tempting to grab that money. It absolutely is, but I know you're skating on thin ice there. All it takes is one significant, special ed move in, and it disappears like that. We're living on our furnaces are on their last leg. I know we approved money yesterday. It's going to be replaced next July. How are we going to get through this winter? I'm not really sure. But I know, like I said, there's E&D money, and it's tempting to grab that, but you got to be careful with that as well. The one thing, no matter where this goes, the one thing that I can't stress enough is we need to have a budget soon. We had our last day of school a couple days ago. We broke. We sent letters home to all the students in the report cards. We do not know who your teacher is going to be next year. That's a tough thing to say. So if I was a parent and I was on the fence, well, should I send my kid to another district or not? The other one might be a sure thing. We're a huge question mark. We need to have some answers. We need to put that together soon. I had a couple of staff members. They're great. We had a great hire last summer. We hired a couple of great young teachers. I had to look at them at the end of the year and say, you're probably going to have a job. And they looked at me and said, can you say that with 100% certainty? No, I can't. I wish I could have. If I was them, I would be sharpening up my resume right now. So each day that passes, the chances are some good teachers might be slipping out the door, some students may be going elsewhere, which will sort of exacerbate the whole problem. Yeah, we really do need a budget soon. July 1, we absolutely need it. There's so much that needs to be done once we have the number of sections in place. What I asked my teachers to do is give me a scenario of 100 kindergartners in 4 sections. Now give it to me in 5 sections. I did the same thing with grades 1 and 2. I have so many different scenarios they're ready to be put into place. I just need to have the go-ahead. How many sections do we have in each? Every administrator up and down the district would say the exact same thing. But where we need to go, I think we can see this now. As soon as this is done, we need to take a real long, hard look at the regional agreement. I'm not sure if that's on, Dr. DeFalco's agenda, but we really, really need to look at that. That way it would truly be our district, not Blackstone, Millville, Blackstone. We really need to look hard at that. So again, just to summarize, get some kind of a budget. We need to move on because we're dying here. We really are. Sorry.
You may.
Just a quick comment for everyone. We're talking about excess and deficiency In FY14, the school committee offset the budget by $655,000 coming out of E&D. FY15, $150,000. FY16, $400,000. FY17, $350,000. FY18, $140,000. It's $1.6 million that we have spent out of E&D to offset this budget. We're asking for $68,000 to move forward and to allow all parties to begin the difficult conversations to move forward. 68 as compared with 1.6 million over the last 5 years. Thank you.
Is it also true that the more money has been put in from E&D than from the two towns?
Yes.
In terms of...
From FY14 to FY18, yes.
Yes,
In supplemental.
exactly. So, again, I can empathize with both of you. I can see both sides. I'm glad I don't have to decide. It's Sophie's choice. I'm not sure where you're going to go with it. I'm thinking the same thing when I'm allocating my positions. Do I want 25 in a kindergarten class? Heck no. I would love to have 20 or less.
We already have a vote.
We already
on that.
have
We already had a vote on that.
You have
That's
to have
not
5
happening.
kindergarten classes, whether you
Sorry,
might have
Steve.
one first
Oh.
grade class, but you'll have 5.
Okay, then that would
kindergarten.
impact my first and second grade
Correct.
scenario. That's,
Those were
that's
the
tough.
numbers that were presented to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Jennifer?
I guess I just want to say I agree with the gentleman that just spoke, and I also appreciate the email from Dr. Falco, and that I think we kind of see what's happening in Millville and what's happening across a lot of other areas, that there is such a division, and I think to come together and start off on the right foot would be very helpful to Millville especially, and like I said, in a year, hopefully things will be better, but I am hopeful of that, but I am, like I said, I'm terrified of the super town meeting with someone increasing the amount, and then I don't know what would happen to the town at that point. And I know $40,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when there are other areas to get it, I know that Millville has pulled from their stabilization fund over and over to meet its obligations, including its obligations to the school system. So, and I'm sorry that you have to do that. I know that Millville wasn't happy about doing that either. And I appreciate Mr. Himmelberg's point around Berger. Sorry. It's nervous sitting up here, but it's like you against everybody else. That we're only pulling $68,000, which is lower than other school years as well. So, thank you for letting me speak twice.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Dan Keefe, Board of Selectmen. I'll start off by addressing Mrs. Lemieux's comments. She misquoted, that wasn't me who made that quote, it was the woman from the state, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Lemieux and I have had plenty of discussion on.
It's always good to play nice in the
always
sandbox,
good. It is
whoever
good to
says
play
it.
nice in the sandbox. It's my understanding that option 3 was not available before tonight, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and working with the two communities and the school district, in the negotiations and budgets and stuff, that is a pretty good compromise. In my opinion, it's my opinion, it's a very good compromise. And I understand, Mrs. Lemieux, your dedication and you'll fight for every last dollar, and I applaud you for that. But in the current situation, and my understanding on this, your May 30th budget will be met by option 3. Is that correct? Okay. You have a superintendent who is leaving and a superintendent who is coming in that both recommend not going to a super town meeting.
District-wide community meeting.
We're calling a super town meeting, which we've never had one in 50 years, correct? And I'll go, and for people at home, it's a district-wide community meeting, also known as a super town meeting, okay, AKA. So I feel, and this is as one member of the community, it is a very fair compromise what you have come up with the only 68,000 out of the E&D fund. And for the additional 139,000 going to a super town meeting, which could potentially reduce the number. And with the climate currently, and the ballot that took place in Millville just a week or so ago, and the amount of people that showed up, I would have a great deal of concern on potential of someone actually trying to reduce that budget, and then you have to have a whole new conversation. What you have here is what you are looking to get to begin with the May 30th budget. We have an option. You have an option here to get that funding, and hopefully continue to build on our relationships with the two communities, like what was attempted to be started a month or so ago with the Department of Education and the Department of Local Services, but hopefully we can continue that. But that's just my 2 cents, and I appreciate your time and all your hard work and effort on every member of this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy.
So I appreciate both Millville and Blackstone working hard at what they believe in, but I think the overall goal of the school committee and the school itself is to do what's right in the best interest of children right now. And so the compromise is one thing and best interest of children is another. And I think I have three children in this school right now that have 30 in a classroom. So what is in the best interest of children is I want to leave that question to make the vote happen. Whether it's one way or another, the end result is what is in the best interest of children, not what is the compromise, not one town versus another town. It's, when the school committee comes forward with a budget, and that budget is not going to budge because that's what our children need, then that is what needs to drive the decision. Not the towns, not the compromises, it's the students. And when you have 30 students in a classroom, I've lived it, I'm 19 years deep in it, 30 kids in a classroom. I don't know how you're going to do it, Cecilia. I'll pray every night for you. But I really worry about those students. We don't have the behavioral needs met. I'm very, very concerned. And like I said, I have 3 students in this school, and 30 kids in a classroom is not acceptable. I will take 30 in a 5th grade class. I will not accept 30 in a 1st grade or a 2nd grade or a kindergarten class. So the end result the question needs to be, what is in the best interest of the students, not the towns, the students. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can understand Sarah's point. We don't want to take from our E&D, essentially our stabilization. But Millville's been giving from their stabilization for the last 3 years. So I'm not going to go down that road. But what I would like to say is, right now, you're looking at, what, $220,000 going into your E&D account? Okay, E&D, by definition, excess and deficiency, is basically what is described as our free cash in the town. It's what you have left over after your budget. We have a regional agreement. Our regional agreement is funded by the 2 towns. To say that Blackstone's been carrying Millville, that's not even possible. Based on the law, that's not even possible. So 27% of $220,000 is a little over $59,000. You're getting an additional $70,000 back from transportation. 27% of that is a little over $18,000. There's a little bit more than your 68 right there. So I'd like to exercise the right to use Millville's money to put it towards your certified budget that you have right now. That's what I'd like to do. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, having heard that, we still have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion on Aaron's motion?
I just want to say one thing. you know, we're talking about, again, we talk about this fund, these funds going into E&D. Where the school department is always 2 out-of-district placements away from using the entire E&D account at any moment. And, you know, I wish Loretta Braverman were here, because she is consistently telling us, well, somebody just moved in and they're placed wherever. So it sounds like there's a lot of money there, but it's really 2 or 3 out-of-district placements difference. We had a social behavioral classroom set up. We thought that was going to work out great. It didn't. Those students one of those students had to be out of district placed. We need that money in case that student moves in or that student's IEP team says something changes. That E&D that we're thinking of, dreaming of sitting over there in E&D can go to reduce these numbers. It's not additional. There's no additional money. We're not talking about any additional money tonight. We already cut what we thought we needed for a proper, Jean, I forget what word you had when we had the bare bones and the competitive, I believe it was.
Sustainable.
Competitively strategic.
Competitively strategic. That went by the wayside.
It did.
That was our additional.
Sustainable.
And we cut
By
it.
the wayside, too.
So we're talking about additional, and it's not additional. We're still underfunded. We continue to be underfunded, and that's not going to change no matter what happens here tonight.
Fair.
So I respect what Mr. Roulette said about 27% of that is, so actually we could all say that was some of the Chapter 70 money too. The 220,000 could have come from the state. It is money that was not spent in this year's budget, that was on a line item, and it was not spent for whatever the case may have been. Electricity, I can't imagine it being transportation or special ed, but those monies were earmarked for something this year, not used. It's been several years since we've had any money roll into E&D in that number, in that amount. And like Alan already pointed out, we have refunded ourselves with that money at the bill of $1.6 million in the last 5 years. I think it's a very small setback to operate on a 1/12 budget for Dr. DeFalco. I think we all respect his position, and it should definitely not reflect on him, whatever way we motion this evening, because he didn't build this budget. He has to live with it, and he has to work with this budget coming into our school district next week. So being a small setback of a 1/12 budget for hopefully only a month, if the outcome at that joint town meeting is in favor of funding to the budget that we've already certified, it will give him just a little more ability to help our district move forward through the year, possibly putting teachers back into place. I am very disappointed that E&D number was never given to us when we were stretching for the 1.5 million in cuts, because that's when it should have been on this table. We should not be divided tonight over using this money. This should have been a conversation at least 2 meetings ago, if not in February or March, before we were certifying at an open hearing. So, or communicated to us before sitting here in an open meeting, and not even knowing this was coming. Very unfair to us sitting here as 8 people and dividing us on this decision, and making it look like we're not making a better choice for one community or the other, because that's not what we're here for. As Wendy had said, we are here to make sure the kids have what they need. And had that money been on the table 2 meetings ago, we would have already made a motion to allocate it towards a teacher in the complex, and it would have been done. So I am very disappointed that we didn't have it before 7 p.m. this evening. And it makes us look like we're not supporting our town. That's not fair. But now that we have that money, we had a motion on June 15th that any additional funds would be used towards staffing. We would be breaking that motion if any additional funds. So,
and I will say that to say we should have had it in January or February, we had some information from Wen at our last meeting that she expected some of the numbers to change. We had that information. She did not know the exact amount. We have a report in front of us that she said earlier tonight she received on Wednesday.
Transportation.
So that's yesterday.
That's not E&D, Jane.
What?
That's
No,
transportation.
but it's all of the monies combined that she has been able to flesh out since our last meeting. It's not that it was there 3 months ago. It was not.
It was never the recommendation, as it has been in the past, to use any E&D this year.
Because there was a belief, if you remember correctly, from your comments alone, that we thought we were going to end in the negative.
Correct.
So
The
it was
money
not
she's
there.
recommending is coming from our certified number. It's not coming because we have a surplus all of a sudden.
It's also coming from sewage projects, sewer projects that we can close out. It's coming from closeout of different projects as well. Stuff that we will talk about on July 9th. Okay, there's still a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of reapproving, readopting the Wednesday, May 30th recertification numbers and moving to a district-wide community meeting to meet those numbers, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Any abstentions? Okay. We will work with both of our communities, Board of Selectmen and town clerks in both of those communities to move to the earliest possible district-wide community meeting. Mr. Himmelberger. We're going to move the surplus and the discussion of roof projects to our July 9th meeting.
I'm sorry, what was that? What are we
The
moving?
next two, B and C,
B and C?
the surplus and the roof project completion and closeouts. Curriculum.
Well, that's just for information in the packets.
You have your information on the curriculum, technology, and special education year-end reports. We did the JFK project. We've done that.
May I ask a question on the, and I don't know if I should ask Alan or if I should email Loretta, but the special education year-end report, do you know how many students are out of district placed at this time?
I do not.
Okay. Is that something I should email through Jason, through directly to Loretta?
I would say
Or I don't
email
even know.
Jason,
Email Jason. Okay, thank
and I'll
you.
give him a heads up to look for it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to see, because that was one of our district-wide, district goals, so I'd want to see where we ended up.
Okay, school committee forum. Sarah?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's reached out for or against the idea of a Supertown meeting. We do need to come together. I know that Millville's in a difficult position and having to make hard cuts. And we can empathize because we've been making hard cuts. It's going to be it's a difficult process, and hopefully we can get through it and come together and work for the betterment of the district and the two communities.
Bethany?
Sure. I just want to thank everyone who emailed us also. I understand that we are dealing with people's lives any way you look at it. We're dealing with people's occupations, we're dealing with children, we're dealing with taxpayers, we're dealing with homeowners, and we take this very seriously. That's all I have to say.
I want to say that education is important, and I can appreciate the plea to kind of wait out another year or a couple of years until financial situations change. However, for some students, that year or two of a lack of a quality education can change their whole lives. If you don't, so for some kids, not learning how to read properly in first and second grade sends you into a tizzy where you hate school for the rest of your life. I'm a high school teacher. I deal with plenty of kids that hate school. So I just want to be able to have the resources to build the love of learning, to do it well, and to get children on the right track for the rest of their lives. These are our children's lives, not, it's just, so it's not, I don't dislike Millville. I don't hate everybody in Millville. I don't hate anybody, quite honestly. I just want to do what's best for kids, and education to me is the most important thing any of us have. It's part of happiness. So it's not because I want to be a hater. I'm not a hater. I just want a proper education for children. So.
I guess I kind of feel the same. Going to a district-wide meeting isn't an easy decision. I live in Millville. I see the impacts. But the cuts and strains that are being put on our kids are huge and not fair. So I just think that we have to do it. And I know we talk a lot about elementary, but high school kids have a lot of cuts in their programs as well. So we need to try to help all of them.
Aaron? Alan, where do we stand with the Director of Special Education? Because I know when we met, it was going to be posted.
That position has been posted. I believe Dr. DeFalco is going to, when that closes, bring that to the committee.
Is it posted externally?
I believe it's posted internally.
Anything else? Yes, no?
I do not have anything.
Jack, did you have anything?
Other than, I hope that when it's all said and done, Millville doesn't have to reduce any of its the police and fire or anything important to the safety of the people of the town, because that's right up there with education is one of the most important things that a town can have, and that's what I was really most concerned about, other than the best education for the students, is can the police respond in a timely fashion to their home. It's just one of the many concerns that I had going into it.
And I would hope that once a district-wide community meeting is announced, that the over 200 people that attended the Blackstone meeting and the over 200 people that attended the Millville meeting and anyone else who's a registered voter would attend and have their voices heard, because if we truly want district representation, then we need people to turn out and do so. And then before we end our meeting, I would like to thank Mr. Himmelberger for his years of work and service to the community. I know he did not want to make a big deal about that, but we are a better district for his having had his service here. So I thank him for that. And our next meeting is July 9th. Meeting adjourned.